September 27th, 1510, Beijing. A man is being dragged through the streets of the imperial capital. He is not a general, not a nobleman, not a prince. He is a eunuch. Castrated as a child, sold into the Forbidden City as a slave, and for 4 years he ruled the most powerful empire on earth. Officials knelt before him, called him Your Highness, paid 20,000 taels of silver just to see the real emperor, while that emperor played with leopards in a private zoo. When they finally searched his residence, they found 240,000 gold bars, 50 million liang of silver, 3 bushels of precious stones, 2 suits of solid gold armor, and hidden inside his personal fan, a dagger, carried near the emperor every single day. His name was Liu Jin. His treasure? $2.5 trillion. His punishment required 3,357 cuts over 3 days. In the 15th century, the largest structure on Earth sat at the heart of Beijing, the Forbidden City. 9,999 rooms, home to the Ming Dynasty, 200 million subjects, an empire stretching from the deserts of Mongolia to the jungles of Vietnam. It was governed by the most sophisticated bureaucracy in the world. Confucian scholars, trained for decades, tested through imperial examinations, but inside the palace walls, there was another class of servant entirely. Men who had been castrated. The procedure was brutal. Families paid to have their sons cut. The death rate was 1 in 50. Those who survived entered the palace as servants. They could never sire children, never build family dynasties, never threaten the throne. That was the theory. In 1451, a boy was born in Shanxi province, one of the poorest regions in the empire. His name was Tan Jin. His family made a decision. They would trade their son's body for a chance at the palace. The boy survived the procedure. He entered the Forbidden City. He was adopted by a senior palace eunuch surnamed Liu. The boy became Liu Jin, and he was assigned to serve the crown prince, a boy named Zhu Hujiao. They grew up together, the prince and the castrated servant, playing in the same gardens, eating at the same table. One was destined for the throne. The other was supposed to be invisible. Above them both sat the Hongzhi Emperor, Zhu Hujiao's father. He was one of the finest rulers in Ming history, devoted, diligent, the only emperor in Chinese history to practice monogamy. In 1505, the Hongzhi Emperor died. He was 35 years old. His son inherited the largest empire on earth. Zhu Hujiao was 14. The system was designed to protect a young ruler. Grand secretaries, 6 ministries, layers of advisors trained for this exact scenario. But there were 8 men who knew the boy better than anyone. 8 eunuchs who had raised him since childhood. They called themselves the 8 Tigers, and their leader was Liu Jin. 8 eunuchs, 8 positions of influence around a 14-year-old emperor, and one of them controlled the rest. Liu Jin's first move was subtle. He took control of the bells and drums office, the department that managed the emperor's entertainment. Wrestling, music, hunting falcons, exotic animals. Anything the teenage emperor wanted, Liu Jin provided. He made himself indispensable, the man who kept the emperor happy. But the Confucian officials saw what was happening. In October 1506, they submitted a formal petition. Execute the 8 tigers. Liu Jin intercepted it. He went to the emperor with tears in his posture, hunched shoulders, clasped hands. He convinced the boy it was a plot, not against the tigers, against the emperor. The officials were trying to strip away his closest companions. The petition backfired. The officials were demoted. The 8 tigers were promoted, every single one. and Liu Jin received the most dangerous promotion in Chinese history, head of the Directorate of Ceremonial. This was the office that controlled every document entering and leaving the palace, every petition, every report, every military dispatch. Liu Jin now read every state document before the emperor saw it. He marked them with red ink, the color of imperial authority. He decided what the emperor would see and what the emperor would never know about. Meanwhile, the emperor had a project of his own. He built the Leopard Quarter, a converted section of the imperial park. Exotic animals, entertainment halls, private chambers. In 1508, the Emperor of China moved out of the Forbidden City, permanently. The throne room sat empty, the most powerful seat on earth, abandoned by the man who owned it. Zhengde preferred building furniture, learning Tibetan, studying music, anything except governing 200 million people. He told Liu Jin directly, "I implore you to avoid the tedious task of reading." With that single sentence, Liu Jin had everything he needed. He controlled every word between the emperor and reality, every petition filtered, every report edited, every complaint erased. And now, he built the machine to enforce it. The Eastern Depot, the eunuch-run secret police. Under Liu Jin, it grew into a network of 16,000 spies and informants across every province, in every government office. Anyone who questioned Liu Jin disappeared. Officials who refused to pay tribute woke to agents at their door. The Forbidden City had always had walls. Now, it had ears. In 2 years, a castrated servant had built a shadow government. The emperor played with leopards, and Liu Jin played with China. Within a year, the whisper had become a saying. 2 emperors, one named Zhu, one named Liu. Provincial officials traveled weeks to kneel before a eunuch. They called him Qian Sui, 1,000 years, the greeting reserved for princes of the blood. And every single one of them paid for the privilege. 20,000 taels of silver. That was the price of an audience with the standing emperor. 20,000 taels, roughly $6 million. Not for a decision, just for a meeting. Officials who arrived without silver were turned away. Those who arrived with it were seen within the hour. The bribes were not occasional, they were systematic, a toll system on governance itself. But the audience fees were just the surface. Liu Jin rebuilt the empire's entire revenue system. He seized control of the salt monopoly, the single largest source of government revenue. He imposed new mining levies. Every ounce of ore extracted from Chinese soil now owed a percentage to Liu Jin's treasury, not the emperor's, Liu Jin's. And he turned the tax system into a weapon. Eastern Depot agents placed in every provincial tax office, watching, counting, enforcing. The paradox of Liu Jin is that some of his reforms were genuinely aimed at reducing corruption among officials. He attacked corruption while building the largest personal fortune in Chinese history. The money flowed through him like water through a dam. A fraction reached the imperial treasury. The rest vanished into vaults that only Liu Jin could open. He built private vaults beneath his residence, behind locked doors guarded by his own men. Gold bars, each weighing 10 liang, roughly 370 grams of pure gold. 240,000 of them. Silver, 50 million liang, equivalent to 1,865 metric tons. Precious stones by the bushel, coral, jade. 2 suits of armor made entirely of gold, 3,000 gold rings. His personal wealth exceeded the annual revenue of the empire he served, a eunuch richer than the state. He could have bought the empire. Instead, he chose to run it. But empires are not patient. While Liu Jin built his fortune, China began to break. Mongol raiders struck the northern border. Garrisons sent urgent dispatches to Beijing. Liu Jin filed them under his desk. Excessive taxation was crushing the countryside. Farmers defaulted, villages emptied, banditry filled the vacuum. In 1509, banditry erupted across the northern provinces. Not raids, organized resistance. The frontier was on fire. The cracks spread. Mongol raids in the north, tax revolts in the east. The southern provinces cut off from power entirely because Liu Jin's network was built by northerners who excluded the south. Liu Jin pushed military household quotas beyond breaking. Frontier garrisons, the men who held the empire together, were being squeezed to fund his treasury. The men who guarded the borders could not feed their families. The wall stood. The soldiers behind it were disappearing. And the emperor?
Zhengde was learning Tibetan. He had mastered basic phrases. He could chant Buddhist sutras. He built furniture, designed entertainment programs, studied music theory, practiced archery for sport, not war. Military dispatches arrived at the leopard quarter and were turned away. Urgent, critical, irrelevant. Send it through the directorate. Liu Jin will decide if the emperor needs to know. Music in the leopard quarter, silence in the forbidden city, and fire on the borders. Liu Jin knew the empire was cracking. He simply did not care. Every crisis that weakened the state made officials more dependent on him, more willing to pay, more afraid to resist. For those who did resist, Liu Jin had a special instrument, the Kang. Normally weighing 30 jin, Liu Jin's version weighed 150 kilograms. A wooden collar designed to slowly crush a man to death under its own weight. Officials sentenced to Liu Jin's Kang rarely survived more than a few days. It was not a punishment for crimes. It was a punishment for defiance. Anyone who publicly questioned Liu Jin's authority met the 300 jin collar. The terror was not theoretical. It lived in every official's home, in every midnight knock, in the silence that followed. Across the empire, officials stopped governing and started surviving. Reports were softened. Corruption went unreported. Problems festered because no one dared name them. The information pipeline Liu Jin built didn't just filter reality. It created a feedback loop. Only good news reached the emperor, which meant the emperor believed the empire was fine, which meant Liu Jin's power was never questioned. The emperor received reports that everything was functioning perfectly because Liu Jin wrote those reports. 4 years, from 1506 to 1510. 4 years of a eunuch running the largest empire on earth. But power built on fear has an expiration date. The empire Liu Jin squeezed was not infinite, and among the 8 tigers, one was watching the leader with different eyes. Zhang Yong, the only tiger with real military experience, the only one who had commanded armies, the only one who understood that soldiers don't kneel forever. He watched Liu Jin dismiss military emergencies. He read the reports that were filed under desks, and he waited. Because Zhang Yong understood something Liu Jin had forgotten. The tigers were a pack, and packs turn on the leader when he stops feeding them. The standing emperor had 4 years. His clock had just run out. May 1510, Ningxia Province, 1,500 miles from Beijing. A prince of the blood did something no one had dared do in decades. Zhu Jifan, the prince of Anhua, 4th-generation Ming royalty. He raised an army, and he named his enemy. His proclamation accused Liu Jin by name. Every crime, every bribe, every abuse of power, every ignored dispatch. The prince declared Liu Jin a traitor to the dynasty, and he marched. 1,500 miles between Ningxia and the capital, but the distance was irrelevant.
What mattered was the accusation. A member of the imperial family had publicly named Liu Jin a traitor. The word was now official. The news reached Beijing within days, and for the first time in 4 years, the Forbidden City moved with urgency. A rebellion. Not bandits, not border raids, an imperial prince with an army marching toward the capital. Liu Jin received the news calmly. He had survived petitions, survived protests, survived 4 years of controlling the largest empire on Earth. A provincial rebellion was a problem, and Liu Jin solved problems. An emergency council convened. The rebellion had to be crushed quickly, before other provinces joined, before the accusation spread further. Someone had to lead the suppression force. And Zhang Yong volunteered. Liu Jin agreed. The military tiger was the logical choice. He had experience. He had loyal troops. What Liu Jin did not know was that he had just handed the weapon to the man who would use it to destroy him. Zhang Yong rode west with an army at his back. His mission was to crush the Prince of Anhua's rebellion. His real mission was something else entirely. The suppression force covered ground quickly. Zhang Yong pushed his army hard, not because the rebellion was dangerous, because he needed to reach Ningxia before anyone else. The rebellion collapsed in 18 days. The Prince of Anhua's forces were poorly organized and undersupplied. Zhang Yong's professional army dismantled them with surgical efficiency. The prince was captured alive, and this was where Zhang Yong's real campaign began. The prince was eager to talk. He had compiled evidence against Liu Jin for years. Correspondence, financial records, testimony from officials too afraid to speak publicly. He gave Zhang Yong everything. Documents, names, numbers. The architecture of Liu Jin's corruption laid out in paper and ink. Every bribe recorded, every abuse cataloged, every ally named. Zhang Yong spent 3 nights reading. When he was finished, he knew every number, every name, every transaction. He could recite Liu Jin's crimes from memory. He rode back to Beijing at speed, not with the full army, with a small escort and a sealed chest. Inside, everything he needed to end the standing emperor. And Liu Jin? Liu Jin was at his desk, stamping documents, receiving bribes, running the empire, completely unaware that a tiger was riding toward him with his death in a sealed chest. Zhang Yong did not report to the directorate. He did not follow protocol. He did not let Liu Jin filter what the emperor would hear. He went directly to the leopard quarter. The guards recognized the returning commander, a military hero, fresh from crushing a rebellion. The gates of the leopard quarter, closed to every dispatch for 4 years, opened for Zhang Yong. He knelt before the emperor, presented his victory, crushed the rebellion, captured the prince. And then, before anyone could intervene, he opened the chest. What was inside had nothing to do with the rebellion. It was Liu Jin's entire financial empire, laid out in paper. Every bribe, every stolen tael, every official coerced, every dispatch buried. The emperor read, and for the first time in 4 years, Zhengde paid attention. Because these weren't tax records or provincial reports. These were records of his own stolen empire. Money that should have been his. Power that should have been his. Trust that should have been his.
The boy who had trusted the eunuch since age 8. The teenager who had willingly surrendered governance. The young man who had believed every filtered report. All of it, collapsing into a fist of crumpled paper. Zhengde gave the order at midnight. Arrest Liu Jin. They found him in his quarters, asleep. The man who controlled 16,000 spies never saw his own arrest coming. He was led through the same corridors where officials had once prostrated before him, the same halls where they called him Qian Sui. 1,000 years. His reign lasted 4. They searched his residence, every room, every hidden compartment.
every vault behind every locked door. And they found it all. 240,000 gold bars, 50 million liang of silver, 57,800 liang of additional gold, 2 suits of gold armor, 3,000 gold rings and brooches, more wealth than the imperial treasury had seen in a generation. The treasure was carried out in the same chests that had carried it in, the river of silver reversed. What had flowed toward Liu Jin for 4 years now flowed away from him forever. But the treasure was not the most dangerous discovery. In Liu Jin's personal belongings, guards found a pair of fans, beautiful, ornate, and inside the handles, concealed daggers. Fans that Liu Jin carried with him, into imperial audiences, into the emperor's presence, hidden blades inches from the son of heaven. Whether Liu Jin intended assassination or simply paranoid self-defense, the court chose to believe the worst. The emperor saw the daggers, and whatever remained of the boy's affection for his childhood companion died in that moment. The tribunal was swift. Liu Jin was charged with 27 counts: corruption, conspiracy, abuse of power, and the charge that sealed his fate, carrying concealed weapons into the imperial presence, high treason. The sentence was unanimous. Ling Qi. Death by slow slicing, reserved for only the most extreme cases of treason. The method? Systematic removal of flesh from the living body over 3 days, designed not merely to kill, but to erase. August 25th, 1510, Beijing. The execution ground prepared at dawn. Liu Jin was brought out in white execution garments. He walked. He did not need to be carried. The man who had controlled an empire walked to his death with his spine straight. The hands that held the red brush, the hands that stamped documents, the hands that trailed across 240,000 gold bars, bound, empty, done. Officials who had paid 20,000 taels for a meeting now watched for free. The sentence was carried out over 3 days. When it was finished, the most powerful eunuch in Chinese history had been reduced to nothing. Not metaphorically, literally, erased, piece by piece. The treasure was seized, every gold bar, every silver tael, every gem and jade piece and gold ring returned to the imperial treasury. 4 years of theft, recovered in 4 days. And the emperor? He returned to the leopard quarter. He did not move back to the Forbidden City. The throne room remained empty. The eunuch was gone, but the pattern he created survived him. Liu Jin was dead, but the architecture of his power was not. The document filtering, the spy networks, the pleasure palace, the pattern of eunuch dominance that would repeat across the final century of the Ming Dynasty. He was gone. His method was immortal. The dragon throne sat empty, and it would remain empty, in spirit, if not in body, for the rest of the dynasty. Because Liu Jin didn't just steal an empire, he proved it could be stolen. And that lesson, that a castrated servant could rule China from a desk, would echo through every corridor of the Forbidden City until the dynasty fell.
Liu Jin was dead. The treasure was recovered. The reforms were burned, and the emperor went back to the leopard quarter. 7 years later, Zhengde did something no one expected. He personally led an army to the northern border, fought Mongol raiders, commanded troops, showed genuine military talent. The boy who had handed his empire to a eunuch was capable of leading it all along. He chose not to. The Forbidden City stayed empty. The throne gathered dust. Not because he couldn't sit in it, because he didn't want to. 1521, 11 years after Liu Jin's execution. The emperor was on a pleasure barge. It capsized. Zhengde fell into the water and never fully recovered. He died weeks later, age 29,
no heir. The boy who inherited 200 million subjects ended his life in a lake, drowned by his own entertainment. 16 years on the throne, not a single one spent governing. His successors destroyed every document Liu Jin had drafted: tax reforms, administrative restructuring, provincial reorganization. The only serious attempts to modernize Ming governance in a century burned. Not because the reforms were wrong, because the man who wrote them was. But the positions Liu Jin created didn't burn. The eunuch intendants in every province, the expanded Eastern Depot, the document filtering system. These survived because they were useful. And what is useful to power never dies. New eunuchs filled the old positions. New hands held the old brushes. New men sat in the old chairs. The machine Liu Jin built simply replaced its operator and kept running. 114 years later, a man named Wei Zhongxian proved it. Wei Zhongxian followed Liu Jin's playbook precisely, and then exceeded it. He didn't just want officials to kneel. He built temples, to himself, across the empire. He demanded to be called 9,000 years. Liu Jin had settled for 1,000. Same method, same steps, same result. A eunuch controlling an empire from behind a pleasure-seeking emperor. Liu Jin's ghost walked the corridors of the Forbidden City for another century. 1644. The Manchu armies reached Beijing. The last Ming emperor climbed Coal Hill, the small mountain behind the Forbidden City, and hanged himself from a tree. The dynasty that had ruled 300 million people for 276 years ended with one man and one rope.
134 years, from Liu Jin's execution to the fall of the dynasty. The rot he planted grew through every generation. But this story was never about one eunuch. It was about a method. Step 1. Entertainment. Control what the leader enjoys. Make yourself the source of every pleasure. Step 2. Dependence. Make the leader need you. Handle the tedious work. Become indispensable.
Blueprint.
Step 3. Document control.
Document
Control what the leader knows.
The pivot.
Filter every report. Edit every message. Decide what reaches the top and what disappears. Step 4. Spy network. Control what the leader fears. Build a surveillance apparatus. Make everyone afraid. Make silence the safest option. Step 5. Treasury. Control what the leader owns. Divert the revenue. Build a personal fortune. Make the wealth of the state indistinguishable from your own. 5 steps, 4 years, 1 eunuch, 200 million subjects, and an empire stolen in plain sight. The method hasn't changed. The corridors are different now. The documents are digital. The entertainment is on screens. But whoever controls the information between a leader and reality controls the empire. That is Liu Jin's legacy. Not the gold, not the execution, not the 3,357 cuts. The legacy is the lesson. Reality only reaches a leader if someone lets it through. They castrated him to make sure he could never start a dynasty. He didn't need one. He just took someone else's.